Notre Dame is arguably the most famous and iconic Gothic structure on the planet. It's incredibly important. 12 to 14 million visitors go there every single year. It has survived revolutions. Napoleon was crowned there. It was the subject of Victor Hugo's novel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and so it's a quite important structure. It also exhibits all of the classic hallmarks of Gothic architecture, that is to say pointed arches, ribbed vaults, stained glass windows, flying buttresses. They're all at Notre Dame, built in the 12th century and with renovations through the 19th century. And then 3 years ago, on April 15th, 2019, a catastrophic fire occurred at Notre Dame. There was renovation already going on there, and the cause of the fire is still a little uncertain, but it's pretty sure that it was some sort of electrical cable or circuit that caught fire and in the roof area. So to understand how that fire took place, you have to know that Notre Dame has a lead tiled roof, and it's supported by what we call the forest, which are a number of oak beams. They date back to the 13th century, very strong, have withheld, storms and, centuries, but they're also very dry and old. And so when this electrical fire started, they just went ablaze. Everything was destroyed as far as the oak timbers. Then also the lead roof completely melted down into the cathedral. We also know that the spire, it's a 19th century spire that stood at the crossing of the nave and the transept, caved in, and so that particular vaulting system at the transept and crossing, as well as some adjacent vaults, caved in. So that was the destruction that took place. The artwork on the interior of the cathedral amazingly survived. There was one modern altar that was destroyed that sat underneath the spire that fell in, but the artwork throughout the interior, even a 14th century very famous statue of the Virgin Mary survived. And I think it's largely in part because the vaulting system that the Gothic architects had placed as the ceiling really acted as a firewall, so that all of the fire was really happening on top of that, and that protected what was going on in the nave. So we had that area protected. We also know that the people on the ground immediately started to evacuate works. They evacuated all the relics, the tunic of Louis IX. They got those things out of the structure. The other thing that has survived has been the amount of stained glass throughout the cathedral. There were, I think, about 3 glass panels that were broken, and some others did have some thermal cracks in them, but by and large, the stained glass windows survived. And I think that is also due in large part to the firefighters who had been trained when coming to Notre Dame to put out a fire not to spray directly onto the glass because it was hot and malleable, and so that helped to protect it and allow it to stay in place and then cool down. So amazingly, a good amount of the artwork has survived. It's the structure itself that needs to be reinforced. Since the fire, there have been 2 stages. The first stage has been called rescue. That is to say, to stabilize the structure, to clean out the debris that was burned or destroyed. And especially because of the lead roof, there was a lot of lead toxic substance then that entered the cathedral. So even for the first 6 months, a lot of people couldn't even get into spaces that had high lead content to begin to work on the structure. So once that was secured, and that took the first couple of years, then the second phase that has now started is the actual restoration, where everything is being cleaned and then reconstructed. Honestly, I think that Paris has gotten it right this time. Initially, the president, Emmanuel Macron, proposed that any kinds of modern, renovations could take place, and lots of proposals poured in. I was reviewing some of them. There was a proposal for a new glass roof, a new greenhouse on the top, a swimming pool, crystal spires. But the head architect of the restoration, Philippe Villeneuve, he's old school, and he maintained that the restoration should preserve, in his words, the latest state, the latest historic state. So what that means is not try to go all the way back to the 12th century when it first went up, but even the renovations that had taken place in the 19th century, for example, the spire, that was the latest restored state, and that we should get it back to that particular condition before it actually caught on fire. So I think that's right. I think that they have made the right choices there. So in restoring it to its state before the fire, they have done a number of things that I think are quite admirable. For example, they are looking for stone quarries around Paris to match original stonework. They are reinforcing the roof again with oak timbers, and they are going around France and choosing forestry and bringing it in, even trees that date back to the period of the French Revolution. So they are really taking their time to use authentic materials. The plan for now is that it will reopen in 2024. So Macron has said, let's take 5 years, and they are under the gun to do it. The idea is that it would open to visitors at the time of the Summer Olympics in Paris. But the first Mass is being planned for April 16th of 2024. So those are the plans. How will it look at that time? I think the exterior is going to be very similar to its original profile on the skyline in Paris. But the interior, I think, will look different because everything is being so cleaned now. After centuries of not having been cleaned, it will look a little bit more sparkling new to the eye than before.